And away we go. ZLO versus pancakes. This ought to be extremely interesting.
Pancakes?
Isn't that what BlInChIks mean?
I
That's
don't
what I was told
know,
it
actually.
means.
Okay, interesting. He plays a lot
Pancakes is
better than a
way
pancake.
easier to say than BlInChIks, so I'm just gonna go with that.
I'll stick to BlInChIk because if I mess up and say BRNKoINSANITY instead, it's going to be fun.
Okay. All right, BlInChIk is going for a double land factory opening. What is that?
That is different. I want to see what he's building from that. Is he opening with labs?
We've also got symmetrical UEF UEF.
Huh, you're
So
right.
ZLO is going for a little bit more traditional second air factory after 4 PGens, probably going to have to rely more heavily on reclaim to make that power build work out, but all the more power to him if he can.
Oops.
Looks like BlInChIk is getting the 2 factories down with 5 power generators and 2 mass extractors, and then immediately walking his ACU to the right. Already queued up all of the manual reclaim for the boulders, building the mass extractors and a land factory, and then moving on. To people who are wondering how to improve their early builds, that's how you do it.
Queue up,
Basically,
yeah, queue up as much as possible so that you don't have
yes.
to touch any unit later on.
When you spawn, you have your ACU by itself for 30 seconds. There's no other units. And if we look at the estimated arrival times, that is a 6-minute ACU queue. So he doesn't have to worry about his ACU for a very long time. And then as each engineer comes out, you've got, 10, 15 seconds to queue each individual engineer on a build order as well. So that's what gives them the time to get out here, plink down all of these manual reclaim orders, get their mexes, all that good stuff.
And this advice is something you can pretty much generalize. Whenever there's nothing more important to take care of, try to keep your build queues as long as possible. You can still cancel them later if you have to, but having stuff idle is not an option.
And if all else fails, manual reclaim. Use that APM.
Of course.
So 2 engineers have been sent out to the center island. It looks like ZLO has got a very slight head start, but I'm curious to see who is actually going to get the center island since it's an engineer war. Second land factory going down, and it looks like air factories are planned after the hydro for BlInChIk.
I think ZLO has a very interesting map-specific build order because he timed his air factory and the power generator count in a way that the hydro completed when the air factory completed. That's something I don't commonly see on this map. Most people try to go for fully commit for the hydro rush or fully commit for a power generator build, and they only add extra factories later after the construction of the hydro. But this is sort of an in-between option, and that is something you can only find out by sandboxing or observing extremely carefully. So that's a smart build order, if
And
it
that is
actually
the
been
difference
installed.
between a 2000 rank and one of us.
Yeah, true.
uh, you to a lesser degree, since you've still got, what, 300, 400 rank on me?
Yeah, I think so. Not sure. Like, my global rank is kind of low compared to my ladder too. I don't know, but it's probably because of whoring the same maps in the same rotations over and over again.
I think that's what everybody does. It's probably why my rank is as low as it is, because a combination of streaming the entire time that you're playing and playing on different maps constantly, always on random factions, kinds of lends itself to a distinct little disadvantage. That is some amazing Mech Marine micro. That one Mech Marine killed an engineer while being fired on by a tank and has now escaped the tank alive.
I wonder
It's
if it's going to kill the tank. Honestly, it wouldn't be the first time I see this in a slow game.
It's 21 HP, and it looks like he's not tending it anymore, so it
Yeah,
might... Yep, there it is. It's dead. That was quite impressive. So ZLO is obviously going to take air control because of that early air build. BlInChIk might come out ahead later because he does have 2 air factories, but now I'm looking over at ZLO's base, who has 3, so that does not look likely.
Empty slot, as far as I know, since the
Like we said last game, EOTS is one of those maps where sniping off the crucial engineers that are out and about is huge because the travel time is immense. So you're looking at 3-4 minutes to run out to some of these expansions unless you transport. And if you've already lost air control, then that's going to be a little difficult. So you really want to pick up those engineer snipes when you can.
A question in the stream chat from Empty Slot: can you queue up actual like commander upgrades into your queue, which you queue up early on? As far as I know, since like the Notify mod always used to have that possibility, and now that the Notify mod is actually included into standard FAF, it should be possible to queue up.
It is. I use and abuse that quite heavily. You could actually queue your ACU to build 15 T1 power generators, T2. When you queue the T2 upgrade, it gives you access to the T2 build suite in preparation. So you could queue 2 T2 power generators and queue the T3 upgrade and the T3 power generator in one straight run. You can go all the way through the tiers. That's a very useful tool.
That sounds like something to do on GAP when the ACU doesn't have to go into the combat. But then again, I guess on GAP,
exactly.
On GAP you wouldn't need to economize on the APM.
Apologies, I did not see what happened in the center. Where did the purple engineer go?
There was a light assault bot in the transport of ZLO, and that took out the engineer from midair, and then ZLO dropped. So this is like
BlInChIk got the engineer war, but then got dropped with the mech marine, which made up the difference.
Yeah, so ghetto expansion, kind of what we saw here.
Okay. A little bit of stop micro from BlInChIk, but the following turn did not go very well, so ZLO is still going to pull an air win out there.
UEF interceptors are just brutal.
Yes, BlInChIk is up to 3 air factories now and is running neck and neck with ZLO on air production. Let's actually go take a little look. Tanks moving around to ZLO's ACU. There is a bomber out here assisting as well. So both of these guys are moving out to their expansions at about the same time. BlInChIk is on 21 mass income with 1500 reclaim, and 420 power, so 420, 1522, and then 41 mass income for ZLO. 480 power, which is identical, and 1700 reclaim. So ZLO is slightly ahead on mass, the same on power, and ahead on reclaim as well. Pretty much across the board.
Oh, this is such a typical BlInChIk game. He tends to freak rush, and he gets away with it most of the time. So he could have naval dominance now, unless ZLO manages to get enough torp bombers or gunships to take out the navy.
Interesting thing happening here, which all boils down to unit positioning. If you can get your units on the same side of the naval factory as the unit is producing in, you can either ground fire the unit that is building, or sometimes when the naval units are firing on the factory to begin with, the projectiles will collide with the unit that is building, and it'll keep perpetually locking the factory so that nothing can be built. Very useful if you've got cruisers too, because the area of effect on the cruiser missiles is large enough that if you ground fire between the factory and the building slot by ground firing and then dragging the red marker over, you can damage both the factory and the unit at the same time.
Yeah, I remember seeing you do this in a Seatons game, and it blew my mind. I never thought about it this way.
Kind of being a jerk
that you can do this. Like I knew about the naval factory lock, but that you can hit both the ship and the factory with the UEF cruiser is quite blowing my mind actually.
Yeah,
especially
it will make people hate your guts, but it works very well.
Especially since the cruiser is not a unit from which you would expect to have any impact on direct naval-to-naval interaction. But if you place it carefully and manage to pull off the factory lock, then it can actually kill ships quite well.
Yes. So we do have a torpedo bomber out. That means a T2 air shift has happened for ZLO. and it's going to try to start picking off these frigates. The frigates are going to be able to kill the naval factory regardless, though. And of course, anytime we see a shift in tech and then building combat units as opposed to air control units, we're probably going to see air control change hands as long as BlInChIk doesn't mess up the micro. This is huge. This is where ZLO's eco advantage is coming from. These engineers that died earlier to bombers and other raids are just now getting back out to rebuild these mass extractors. So ZLO has owned his for pretty much the entire time, except for this one that has died. And BlInChIk has not been able to actually get those expansions under his control. Naval factory is dead. So that is unfortunate for ZLO, but he will be able to kill off the last of these frigates and might be able to get back in the water in another location.
A T2 point defense at the beach for ZLO, so he can just rebuild Navy there.
Would be helpful. Something to
Oh,
go
sorry.
for it.
Okay, yeah, I think BlInChIk has a very distinct style, actually. He's the kind of player who always goes for very fast Navy and wins naval control with a frig rush, and he always ecos. So it's very hard to find any time in any game in which BlInChIk doesn't constantly eco. And it doesn't matter whether he's a mass stall or whether he's shot down to a low portion of map control, he's just constantly ecoing. And BlInChIk...
Nice catch on the transport there.
Yeah, true. I think BlInChIk is quite underrated, actually. He's a very good player.
It's an interesting play style, and it's kind of the way that I lean to a certain degree, but it all boils down to whether or not they can survive the early game. Because someone who always ecos, is going to be at a disadvantage on a smaller map. And then sometimes a better player will be able to exploit weaknesses in their defenses or even offenses, because they just don't have as many units on the field. But the longer the game goes on, the more certain it is that the ecoing player will win. Now, looking down here at ZLO, he's got one T2 mass extractor as opposed to 2 for BlInChIk, and that's actually now gone to 3 thanks to another mass extractor upgrade. So we're probably going to see eco closing up.
Important to note that BlInChIk actually started ecoing very soon, so the T2 mass extractor upgrades are going to have repaid their own costs multiple times by now.
Yes. So right now, BlInChIk is at 47 mass income, 580 power with 3,000 reclaim. He's actually ahead of ZLO on reclaim, even on mass, and ZLO has actually more than slightly, way more power. Probably has a T2 power generator and is actually overflowing slightly. Not that that's a bad thing.
I like how the Janus bomber collapsed its wings before getting shot down. I think it was because of the curve, but it still looked interesting.
For those of you wondering why swap to Janus, well, Janus have massive area of effect, and they can do some devastating damage to a base like this one, where you've got a bunch of adjacent power generators for BlInChIk laced in with engineers. A single Janus coming in over that could kill 6 power generators and about a dozen engineers in one pass. So
ideally, one Janus on the top row of power generators is going to kill all and most of the engineers. A second Janus at the bottom power generators, all the engineers, and one at the naval factory is going to snipe a lot of power and build power in one pass. And I think that's what ZLO is planning. We can see he's gaining intel now with the scout, and actually that's not going to be used to identify the setup of his opponent, but rather to actually spot Janus targets, I believe.
He's got 4 Januses now, and even if he loses all 4 with only 1 bomb dropped from each, if he's careful about his approach and the way he lays out the napalm, he could pay for all 4 bombers in one pass. It could potentially be brutal. There is a T2 naval move now. There's a destroyer on the field, which should be able to counteract the T2 point defense that has been built in ZLO's base. And then I would imagine he's going to build a cruiser next in order to start hitting some of the base. Is that a TAC launcher?
Where are you seeing the TAC launcher?
ZLO has built a TAC launcher in the center.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that is attack launcher.
Does that reach all the way into the base or only to the Navy?
Most certainly, you know, on a map of this size, it should.
Oh, that is not good.
Oh, never mind. Actually, it's only covering the naval factory, but that is still a very
He can
significant.
kill it.
Yeah, like it's going to be so inexpensive for ZLO, but such a huge loss for BlInChIk.
That is incredible. Now, the other advantage there is that as long as ZLO keeps scouting the map, if BlInChIk tries to rebuild naval factories in other places, he pretty much covers all of the water from that location. So he can snipe off that naval build power at will. Once the TMD goes up over here, rather an expensive setup, then he can get his naval factory back online, but that's going to set him back several minutes.
I wonder if ZLO is actually trying to finish this game without building any navy.
He might be, although he is protecting his own bay.
Yeah, he is.
So something to note about the way the factions are set up that I had not really thought about before, but realized after I looked at the ranges. UEF and Seraphim have the shorter range destroyers, and they have the cruisers. And you might be thinking, well, you know, they can't bombard the shore, so they probably got the cruiser as a consolation prize, so they're shorter range with their main units, but longer range with the auxiliary. Well, not exactly. I think it has more to do with how the torpedo defenses are set up, because the Aeon and Cybran destroyers can reach out and hit the T2 torpedo defenses that all the factions have. The UEF and Seraphim destroyers cannot engage the T2 torpedo defense without also taking fire, and these put out a lot of damage. So those cruisers give the UEF and Seraphim factions the ability to hit these defenses, kind of similar to the way mobile missile launchers are set up, and eliminate them so that the destroyers can come in. And it kind of holds true with the rest of Forged Alliance's philosophy, where every single tier has multiple overlapping trump cards, so that stationary point defenses or torpedo defenses or air anti-air is always super great against one type of unit at that tier, but not so good against another unit. Gives every faction tools to overcome obstacles.
I did not actually know that. I never thought about the torpedo towers at this level. I don't play Navy a lot, and typically I never build D2 torpedo bombers, but they seem to be a real option to stop destroyers from non-Aeon, non-Cybran factions. Which
they are, and he's got the TMD built behind, which should be able to at least slow down the TAC missiles from a potential cruiser. So this is going to keep his bay locked in for quite some time. That was the reasoning behind double T2 and T1 torpedo defense.
Makes sense.
Tech 2 at 20% for ZLO. So he is upgrading that commander, a little bit of extra HP, a little bit of build potential. And BrNKoINSANITY still has not gotten his mechs rebuilt. Got to move in and get those. This engineer is on the way. 1 minute until all of those mechs are claimed. Looks like ZLO has also just realized that he's missing one.
Some of the Janus auto-engaged against the destroyer. Oh wait, no. Is he doing this on purpose?
That was unfortunate.
He's actually fighting air.
Yep.
I think this is intended.
He's going to win it too.
Wow.
One thing to remember about the Janus, like all bombers, they do make excellent meat shields, because the interceptors of your opponent will prioritize fire against the bombers. That's the way the targeting priority is set up. So the higher HP will let them survive, hopefully, and then your interceptors are dealing full damage to their interceptors, while theirs can't kill yours. Also, while it is still weaker than interceptors mass for mass, the Janus does have the best anti-air of any of the fighter bombers. So it will fare significantly better than, say, a Corsair in an air fight.
I would have
Shielding
never
was...
fought air in this situation, but ZLO actually made it work. And
Yep.
apparently he was okay with losing some of the Janus, or actually most of the Janus, to win air control, because the next Janus attack is not going to be an anti-air attack, it's going to be an anti-ground attack.
I wish I would have looked at the air units before the start of that game. I do think that there was a pretty significant numerical advantage on BlInChIk's side, but
Yeah, there
ZLO
was.
just mopped it up. So the shielding is a very good choice over here because that's going to kind of hurt bomber performance, at least in the first pass. So ZLO is not going to be able to readily exploit that weakness in the base that we talked about earlier. BlInChIk is definitely setting up for more eco, though. He's capping off the mass extractors, expanding to 3 T2 power generators. Probably going to have to increase his air production very soon, because ZLO is now a serious threat in that regard.
BlInChIk is actually ahead in mass compared to ZLO.
What are the numbers right now?
It's 85 without reclaim for BlInChIk, and it's 74 without reclaim for ZLO.
Good. It's about to get less, though, because ZLO is now tac missiling the T2 mass extractors that BlInChIk upgraded outside of his base.
BlInChIk
does eliminate 12.
BlInChIk does, however, have access to this reclaim field that ZLO created from the air fight, so this seems pretty even to me still.
Very, very true. 24 mass a tick on all those interceptor wrecks.
And some very juicy Janus wrecks. I would have expected these to have more mass, though.
Did you see that bait?
I did not.
ZLO flew one Janus up next to the interceptors, baited all of them past his main air grouping, and killed all of BlInChIk's air without a single casualty.
How many are we talking?
Like 15.
Wow. Okay.
That was brutal. Absolutely brutal. I am not 100% sure if the bait was intentional or if he sent the bomber out to kill something and then baited the air back after it was already engaged. But I don't think there was anything out there to kill. I think that was an intentional bait.
Do you see the tank group on the left side? I think this was bundled up nicely before, and ZLO may have tried to kill it, but I think he did.
Okay, that makes sense.
I think he didn't place an attack order, but by accident he placed a movement order, and that's how the Janus got there. He realized his mistake and retreated it. But I missed out on the interceptor kill. That's nice.
Really good work on that one.
ZLO actually switching into a torpedo bomber submarine-based setup, and I believe that BlInChIk is going to have to get shield boats, Coopers, and cruisers, which is not a very straightforward mix, and that's why ZLO may be able to surprise BlInChIk with this strange composition.
What is that old saying? Improvise, adapt, overcome. The naval factory over here is slightly confusing to me because, there it is. Now there's a buzzkill. I was going to say, he knows that there is a tac launcher on the center island. So why is he bothering to build valuable things unprotected? But that does make sense now.
Maybe he wanted ZLO to TML it and TMD the TML midway so that ZLO wastes some eco on the missile.
Not sure. Janus strike, that is gonna be 10 kills in a pass. The devastation of the napalm. Also, wall sections OP. I like how ZLO made this nice little gateway that he can put his own units through to get them on the front line, but it's gonna absolutely screw the pathfinding of any enemy units.
The submarines ZLO has can actually move freely in BlInChIk's territory, because BlInChIk doesn't have torpedo tower yet. He just constructed one.
I want to point out that there's a T2 ghetto gunship on the right side, and that's
really
beautiful. It's bringing a little tear to my eye. It's going to fly over some anti-air, but I think it's fine.
Until now he actually outranged the anti-air too. Now immediately attacking it.
That's incredible. I love it. I love it. The interceptors have now moved, but he's moving his own Janus to try and
Get behind
pull
the enemy
that back.
interceptors. I think this is actually a trap to deal some damage at a low cost and at the same time win air control. ZLO is legit using his Janus as air-to-air weapons, which is very out of the box.
That was a little bit of a bad turn there, but he is going to make it work. There it goes. I need to look. They may have buffed the fighter bomber AA in Equilibrium. That might be the answer here.
It's certainly unusual to see someone casually winning air consistently with fighter bombers.
Somebody in chat, let us know. Somebody's got to have the changelog for Equilibrium mod. BlInChIk has so many T2 mexes. All of the T2 mexes in the expansion, or all the mexes are T2 in the expansion.
I just
all
got...
the mexes...
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Kind of difficult multitasking with the live chat. I just got notification from Exotic Retard, who made Equilibrium, that Janus have 150 DPS, and the only reason that Swift wins are better is that they're cheaper. But 150 DPS against air targets is quite significant. That's 3 times as much as a T1 interceptor.
Oh, okay. That makes a lot of sense then.
But sorry, you were talking about the eco, I think.
No, I was saying BlInChIk has all cap T2 mexes at the home base and all T2 mexes in the expansion, as well as a couple more T2s around the map, whereas ZLO just barely has T2 mexes in his home base and does not even have all of those capped. So the eco advantage is swinging quite heavily in favor of BlInChIk, I think.
Looking at eco, ZLO is at a stable plus 82, and BlInChIk is at 73. I think it's because ZLO managed to take out all of these T1 mass extractors with the ghetto gunship, both at the top and at the left side of the map. So even though at minute 23 you would expect the game to stagnate, ZLO is still making use of very low tech units and using them at their full potential at raiding these fingers.
That is pretty impressive. I didn't think about all of the ones dying on the left-hand side. I knew the ones on the right had, but nice pickup there. So we've got destroyers in the water in a great enough number that I don't think ZLO is going to be able to challenge on naval control, especially since Coopers are in the water to deal with the T1 subs.
Is the cruiser actually ground firing the submarines? Oh, wow.
I believe so, yes. That is going to
3 kills.
All of them. ZLO just ran right into the missile barrage. That is glorious.
Wow. Cruisers winning against submarines.
Just a master naval manipulator, apparently. Oh, wow. That's a lot of T1 anti-air. I mean, it makes sense, because he knows there's a lot of Januses. That was a Sparky drop.
Where are we talking? Did it get intercepted?
Yes. ZLO tried to drop Sparkies on the top right.
Oh, I see.
And it got shot down by all of those T1 anti-air. I am mildly horrified at the amount of Janus that are on the map. Like, this is more than enough to kill an ACU.
ZLO really uses Janus as actual fighter bombers. Not bombers, not fighters, real fighter bombers. That's actually
it's a good thing to see.
Yeah, that's actually a first time in FAF, I think.
Maybe I can concede. I've always thought it was weird. I think this buff is probably a little too much. I would have to do some research into the mass-to-mass comparisons between the T2 fighter bombers and the interceptors. And like I said, I don't like the fuel problem that much. But I do like the idea of having multi-purpose units actually be useful at many purposes. Because in Supreme Commander, there's usually a pretty even split on the DPS all the way around. And for instance, the Brick has 375 damage and the Percival has 400. Both of them are amphibious. The Brick has the torpedoes, and the torpedoes on the Brick actually take away from the damage potential total of the Brick because that's factored into the cost. However, what you end up with in the end is a pretty useless torpedo weapon unless you have a lot of bricks and a fairly significant damage nerf. And it would make more sense to be able to say, well, you can only engage one weapon at a time, and we reduce the value cost, so to speak, on the secondary abilities. And that's what they've done with the bombers. Instead of a fighter bomber being okay at bombing for the mass value and not so great but kind of okay at interceptor fighting for the mass cost, they've made it worth the full mass value for both things with a toggle switch where you can only be in one mode at a time. So I don't know, it's an interesting approach, but I'm not sure if I entirely agree with it.
Wait, this toggle button is implemented in Equilibrium?
I am pretty sure, yes.
Oh.
That's why sometimes the wings close up and sometimes they're open, because one firing mode is bombing and one firing mode is anti-air. I don't remember. There was a manual toggle at one point. It may automatically switch now, but there is a toggle back and forth. It can either fire at air or at ground targets.
ZLO now at 105 mass income and BlInChIk at 58. BlInChIk is being very conservative. He keeps using his cruisers as weapons against submarines that are stationary. And BlInChIk is working on a large naval force to... Oh, that's an interesting Janus sniper attempt. Yeah, let's not miss out on
If it looks stupid but it works, it ain't stupid. That's going to take out 2 destroyers, a significant amount of build power, and the factory in one hit.
I think this is where we need to see some air staging, though. Oh, he has it, actually. He has it. Air staging can heal these almost for free.
Ah, yes, he's building it in the middle. Oh, you can still fit 4 Janus on the air staging. Beautiful. I think that's a change, because I don't think you can fit... I know you can fit 4 interceptors, but I think you can only fit 2 of the T2, or maybe 1 in stock FAF.
Look at this heal, though. This was pretty much instant and free.
Yes.
He's got an actual airbase in the center.
I mean, he needed more production. Why not? Just looking at the scores, ZLO is 20,000 ahead-ish. Not a decisive indicator of the way that the game is going, but it's definitely a useful tool. And probably a lot of that score difference has come from the air wins, because air tends to be valued quite highly by the metric that records the score.
I think BlInChIk had enough of ZLO's Janus shenanigans, and he switched into T3 air now.
Ah, getting his T3 power generator down, and he'll get ASF up. Should solve the problem. Oh, look! More engineer pathfinding problems. Yay!
Nobody is safe from the engineer pathfinding.
And it's amazing how they just kind of randomly mill around, and then you just think they're set, and then nope, another pathfinding queue triggers, and then they all drive back into the power generator. FAF, I dearly love you, but sometimes you make me wonder why.
Yeah, this is again a Yuri level pathfinding problem.
All right. Looks like a little bit of a change in targeting priority. That was not a shift G, but he took out all of the anti-air in one pass, and now
he gave
he'll
up.
be free to take out everything else.
He gave up about the T3 pigeon.
Wow.
Pathfinding winning again.
He manually moved everything. Janus are just so devastating. So yeah, let's kill not only the point defense, but all of the walls too. We can't have any walls left behind.
Why settle for anything less?
I am just waiting for a battle cruiser. I keep thinking it's gonna happen. I know it's not, but it would be so cool. I don't think I've ever seen a battle cruiser on yachts before.
Now that you mention it, same here, I think. At least I can't remember.
Yo, BlInChIk, you think you got enough T1 anti-air there? Actually, I think you should be building it more spread out so the napalm doesn't take it all out at once.
Good point.
Would probably be smarter.
I'm interested in seeing what's going to happen with the naval fight. I think BlInChIk is getting into position to actually start fighting Navy. His Navy seems mostly surface-based. Not sure how good the shield boat is going to be, but I think the Janus and the submarines are going to be a strong combination. So ZLO may actually win Navy.
To Janus Island. And they all leave. Just when he came in and landed, the entire island was covered in Janus. It was kind of beautiful. He was coming in to recharge them all, I guess, and get ready for the next attack run. So he is making use of the equilibrium mechanics. For sure, for sure. It is starting to get a little worrying how much Navy BlInChIk has.
Do you think so? I'm starting to think that ZLO is actually going to win Navy if they fought now. It comes down to the composition. 1, 2, 3,
4, 5, 6 destroyers and a bunch of subs. And on the north side, we've got
3 Coopers, and the rest doesn't fight back.
4 destroyers, 2 cruisers. Okay, so versus the destroyers, he's safe. Yeah. He has more than enough frigates to make up for his lack of destroyers. The question would come down to whether or not the 3 Coopers and the shield could hold off the subs long enough for the rest of the Navy to wreck.
Never.
So
the submarines are going to crush this composition.
I don't know, man. I'm not familiar enough with equilibrium balance to make a call on that, but I would have my doubts.
So basically, in equilibrium, the submarines cost 60% more mass, as far as I know, and they have significantly higher HP. That's 200 extra HP. The DPS is doubled, as far as I know. And we are talking about 22 submarines against 3 Coopers.
Okay. I guess I can see that. But you're also talking about, in equilibrium, the specific counter. The Cooper is a sub-hunter, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So it has insanely good torpedo defense to begin with. And then it's also the designed hard counter in this mod.
I don't think the hard counter is that much of a hard counter. Because, like, think about the fire cycle. The fire cycle on the torpedo defense and on the torpedo weapon cannot possibly be so high to overwhelm 22 submarines. I just can't see that. It would have to be a rapid-fire submarine Scathis.
No, not unless it was the mermaids, I guess. Mermaids, the Aeon TMD of the sea.
Depending on the exact placement of the Coopers in this composition, the Janus may be able to take out the Coopers, and then the submarines can just move in and kill everything for free.
Why target anything specifically? Just target all of them and shift G. He's got so many Janus by now, that might actually be the deciding factor.
Not sure if the HUEF cruiser in equilibrium has area damage. I don't know.
I do find it's... I guess ZLO did more research into equilibrium than BlInChIk did. Because it seems like ZLO is more readily manipulating the tools available to him in this game mode than BlInChIk is.
I'm interested in seeing how the T3 Air is going to work out for BlInChIk, whether this is actually going to be online for long enough to have significant relevance, or whether ZLO is going to try and go for the killing blow before it matters.
I guess we'll have to wait for the pause to end to find out.
So
BlInChIk paused for some reason. I don't know why.
He said he needs 1 minute. He didn't give a reason.
Oh, okay.
And he's grateful and back.
Awesome. So there's enough TMD in the center to counter the UEF cruisers, but that is a pretty hefty mass investment to just hold on to that island. Although I guess it's worth it since he's got T2 mechs and all the air staging over there.
A counter is also a strong word. The TMD can only buy time against it at best. It's not going to fire back.
That is true. UEF cruisers are an interesting tool because you need to synchronize the fire on them. They fire in volleys instead of at a steady clip like the Seraphim cruiser does. And although they fire fewer missiles, the missiles each take 2 TMD shots to eliminate as opposed to 1 for the Seraphim cruiser. So with the Seraphim... Say what?
Are we talking TMD shots of UEF TMD, or like I don't know about TMD. I just use flares because
the TMD always does the same damage. So the zapper, the buzzkill, and whatever the Seraphim one is called, it's all the same.
Then why is it that the buzzkill is typically being perceived as so bad compared to other TMD?
There was a bug a while ago that would cause it to miss occasionally. It was something to do with the targeting priorities, and that bug was fixed many, many moons ago. So I don't think that's really relevant anymore. The zapper looks cooler, but I think that's all you're gaining from it. So with the Seraphim cruiser, 1 TMD can not quite hold back the Seraphim cruiser. The firing rate is ever so slightly slower than the missile firing rate. So 1 TMD under a shield can prevent 1 Seraphim cruiser, but you need like 1 1/3 TMD per Seraphim cruiser to stop it. With the UEF, if you have 3 cruisers, if you put them on hold fire and then let them all fire at the same time, that means you have 3 missiles at a time, mini missiles close together, and each one takes 2 TMD shots to kill. So right now, BlInChIk is not synchronizing his fire. So at most, he has 2 missiles at a time, and it's not really doing a good job of breaking the TMD. I would be willing to bet that if he synchronized the fire on all 4 of those cruisers, he would be able to break this no problem.
I think Janus Island is no longer accurate. This has turned into a mix of Iron Dome and Guam.
Accurate. Very accurate. So apparently, according to Janus, BlInChIk is 1.8k on the ladder.
And I think he's still underrated. I get around 25% win rate against him. He does have some specialization into very large, very decentralized, eco-centric maps with lots of extractors and lots of reclaim. And I'd say he's also better at Navy compared to land and air-centric styles. But when I play against him on those maps, then he consistently beats me.
Okay. Well, he is just ecoing like all get out. He's already on his 3rd T3 power generator. He's got 1 T3 mechs and is 50% of the way to his 2nd. He's capped off all of his T2 mechs in his core bases. And ZLO is still on a single T3 mechs and a handful of T2s. However, my prayers have been answered. There's a battle cruiser coming out.
There we go.
ZLO went T3. And it looks like in response, BlInChIk is also going T3 Navy. So we're going to get an epic naval battle.
Oh wow, look at the light show. Now I understand why ZLO has been respecting BlInChIk's Navy so much. Like, for us, when we don't have the jamming, it looks like this is a mix that submarines can easily kill if you move them in and perhaps synchronize them with some Janus shots. But thanks to the jamming, this naval composition looks huge. And you don't know how much of it is unscouted and how much of it is actually from the jamming.
That is incredible. So I think most of it is from the jamming. Just eyeballing
absolutely.
it. Actually, nearly 100% of it is lack of scouting. And he does have scouts. All he has to do is fly over that one time, and when the scout sights the home ship that is responsible for the jamming blips, the jam blips disappear. So one air scout right over the center, even if it dies immediately and the wreck falls across it, would eliminate all of those radar blips. There's the T3 factory for BlInChIk, just finished.
By the way, I got word from Exotic Retard, and he said that the UEF cruiser does not have area damage in equilibrium, but the missiles come with an onboard camera similar to the Lobo.
That's interesting. So the cruiser missiles do not have AoE at all?
Oh, I mean the anti-air capabilities of the cruiser. Like, I was wondering whether they introduced some weak area damage. And
I understand.
This could like add firepower against the Janus, but apparently it's just like no change to the anti-air, only to the missiles in the camera form.
So ZLO at the moment has 174 income on 13,000 reclaim, and he's also plus 900 on power, which is not a huge deal because he's also slightly positive on mass right now. BlInChIk is pretty far behind on eco, 118, also overflowing 4,000 power and minus 351 mass. So that is a result of this naval build. He overbuilt power in order to get more air online, and then when he started doubling down on Navy to respond to the battlecruiser threat, he just has way too much power, not enough mass.
I think the mass stall from BlInChIk is mainly coming from upgrading mass extractors still. So as soon as this completes, he should be almost on par with ZLO, but he's still spending significantly more than he has.
Yes. By what, 300, 200%?
Yeah, true. Very cheeky from ZLO to keep
It looks
raiding
like one of my
BlInChIk with
builds.
D1.
Stalling 30 mass on 10 income. So this is going to be T3 mass extractor number 4 that he's getting.
ZLO in comparison has only 2, unless he also upgraded some in his expansion, but it does not
He
seem
has
so.
1 on the bottom left next to that T1 transport.
Oh, thanks. I see.
So he is also at 3. Plus he's got several of his expansion mexes now to T2 because he's feeling a little safer about his map control.
T3 sonar for BlInChIk in the top right. I think that's online since rather recently. Not sure though.
So one advantage to playing on this map is that the long-range naval units are going to have a little bit more trouble because you can play Ring Around the Rosie on the center island to eliminate some of that range advantage from, say, the battlecruiser. Battlecruiser is quite devastating even against its fellow UEF navies because it has the same range as the Salems or the Aeon destroyers, and unless the UEF opponent has also made the step to T3, there are simply no tools at all to deal with the battlecruiser other than overbuilding T1 subs. Now, once this battlecruiser comes out, and it has just finished building, I think the advantage is actually going to be back in BlInChIk's court, because he does have shielding in his navy, which is going to help with a couple of firing cycles from the opposing cruiser. However, ZLO has just put out his second battlecruiser, so maybe not such an advantage as I first thought.
I like the TMD on the battlecruiser.
Yes.
It's hyperactive.
It's also kind of funny that it looks like there's like a 50mm cannon, and that is what is doing the TMD. That would be an extremely oversized deck gun on a modern battleship, and they're using it for anti-missile fire.
Just like that. Everything is supersized.
Incoming Janus. Take out 3 cruisers in one run.
I completely missed it.
Right there on the top right, looks like it's either 2 cruisers and a destroyer. No, that's definitely 3 cruisers. Some of the Januses are now fairly damaged. He's definitely going to need to get back for a recharge on a few, but that was a really nice hit.
Look at the cheeky T1 Arty. He's just going to keep this up for the entire game. T1 unit race.
Yes. The eternal rating. BlInChIk having to put out a couple of T1 tanks to go deal with those. I find it very odd that BlInChIk is still investing in T3 power with the amount of overflow that he has had for the last little bit. He has queued for T3 mechs on the right-hand side as well, so he's now taking even more steps to upgrade his economy, but that seems like a bad mass investment when you're also going for the mass extractors at the same time. He is bringing another air factory online, so he's trying to strengthen his T3 air hold, but like I said, it strikes me as an odd choice, a very odd choice.
Yeah, true.
Almost out with the second battle cruiser. Just in time for a third battle cruiser. No! Is that a battleship? That is a battleship. ZLO has brought a summit into the field. Now, if he positions that battleship right where his forward shield boat is, he could actually fire through the mountain passes and hit the Navy on the other side.
Oh, really? That's possible?
I think the range is big enough, yes.
It looks quite like it. Just
Depends
worried
on how
about the
he
hill.
wants to line it up. Because if he doesn't do that, he's going to have to bring the battleship far to one side to shoot around the mountains. I think going through the pass might actually be the better option.
I just gotta test whether it's going to hit the hill. This would be unfortunate.
Oh no, it would definitely fire through.
You think so?
It has a pretty high arc.
Okay. I wonder if an Omen could reach through there. Probably not.
No, no. Not enough range, I think. People in chat saying Janus trumps torp bombers confirmed. Only if the Navy is packed in close together, which BlInChIk has been doing. So yes, in this specific instance, yes. I think that ZLO has officially crossed the line where he has a more powerful Navy, decidedly, than BlInChIk. So I'm a little confused as to why he's backing off. Unless he wants to further his lead by picking off all of these units. Shots colliding with the mountains there. It's unfortunate, wasting damage from the summit. The firing cycle takes 20 seconds to reload on that, and while it does a horrific amount of damage per firing cycle, if that firing cycle misses, you're negating most of the damage that battleship can do. Definitely unlike Cybran or Seraphim. I can actually take a look if I go over here to the handy dandy unit database, because I do not remember. T3 battleship, let's see. It is 9,000 damage if all three guns hit with one volley.
They are barely synchronized though, most of the time. I think he's going to need 2 of these to break through a shield boat and kill the ship under the shield.
Each one of the bullets does 1,000 damage. So it's 3 turrets and 3 shells on each turret for 3,000 damage each fire. Oh look, the battleship can actually clear most of the hill.
Oh yeah, that's true. It's just flying over.
It actually just fired over.
Wow.
I knew it had a high firing arc, but I didn't know it was that tall. It's quite useful indeed. ZLO actually just wiped out the north expansions again too. Killed off all those T2 mechs that were on the outside edge.
BlInChIk is vastalling so hard that he can barely use his T3 air. I think he'd love to make strats, but he just doesn't have the eco for it.
I think you're probably right. I think he has enough ASF to wipe out all the air that ZLO has.
20
as long
ASFs.
As he's careful about the engagement.
Well, ASFs have been nerfed in Equilibrium, but I don't know how much. And I don't have experience values from actual gameplay. Maybe we are going to see a T3 versus T1 and T2 air fight in this one, and then we can tell.
Well, if the Januses come in, obviously the ASF lose.
Yeah, probably, after we've seen so far.
OP! I wonder how effective it would be to ground fire a Janus into a group of ASF. Because the bombs can collide with those air units as long as... You know how strat bombers kill themselves when ASF are flying past?
Air superiority bombers and catching strat bombs mid-air, that's a favorite sport.
Yes. I wonder, is the flight ceiling the same for Januses, and would the superior AoE of the napalm attack take out an entire ASF cluster?
Again, sorry? I was looking at beautiful explosions.
Oh. I was wondering if the AoE from the Janus would take out entire clusters of ASF at once, if the flight ceiling is the same.
Probably. Like, I think it's certainly a factor that the Janus is dealing damage over time, so perhaps the ASFs fly so quickly that they could evade most of the damage. I'm not sure though. Never thought about it.
That's true, I didn't think about that. So 2 battle cruisers and 2 battleships versus 3 battle cruisers. ZLO is definitely winning this Navy fight.
BlInChIk's battlecruisers are shooting Hill, while ZLO's battlecruisers are shooting at BlInChIk's battlecruisers. I think the battlecruisers automatically prioritize the regular cruisers, or perhaps the battleship even, I don't know. But
yeah.
ZLO's been more careful about avoiding the Hill than BlInChIk.
BlInChIk is getting an ACU upgrade, I think T3. He's already got shield and resource allocation, and he is finishing off Mass Extractor upgrade number 6 for T3. Oh, he's actually going for fabricators in his base to make use of that power. That's highly explosive when you've got battleships moving in on your position. I'm not sure I'm a fan of that.
ZLO has a certain naval victory now.
Yes. Naval units have scattered. There is a battleship out and another one building for BlInChIk, but once his battle cruisers die, ZLO will be able to run his battle cruisers in and eliminate those summits, no problem. Also, ZLO has mixed in a lot more shielding with his navy, so the summits are not going to be able to target effectively. Battlecruiser number 1 is down, so that just leaves 1, which is now going to die to battleship fire. And there it goes.
Rest in peace, my friend.
That damage is just so high from the UEF battleships.
But I think the UEF propaganda is reaching me, finally. I start rooting for UEF units. I should stop doing that.
Well, it's a game full of UEF, so what else are you supposed to do?
After rooting for Sirens earlier, I just don't feel good about it.
T1 subs moving into the bay now, so it looks like BlInChIk is trying to use his own naval factories as meat shields, which may work out. But now ZLO is at liberty to just kind of sit outside the bay and shell everything to pieces. BlInChIk, you better have an ace up your sleeve, because this is looking pretty grim.
I wonder what that could be.
I wonder if he is going to go for a Fat Boy.
I'd like to see some crazy Billy calm drop sort of thing. Just being creative, I know.
So he's building an Omni on that side. He doesn't have anything to rebuild his navy with. Not that that would really do him any good, because once that navy is done crushing his build power, they're just going to come over here. He is building broadswords, though.
Interesting.
Not going to do well versus cruisers.
I think these were also buffed in Equilibrium. Like, especially the cost has been reduced, as far as I know.
Okay. So there's Omni and going for a T2 shield to cover that. I'm just curious as to what his master plan is.
I think when you can say about yourself that you have held a Navy game against ZLO for 50 minutes, it's okay if you don't have a master plan. But I don't know what we're going to see next. Perhaps he's actually trying something.
Looks like he's rebuilding his eco.
He's certainly
He's
fighting
getting a
till the
T3
bitter
power
end.
generator on this side. So ZLO also has T3 on his ACU and body shield, and he has walked into the water. So he's going to be pretty much impossible to snipe for BlInChIk at this point. T3 gunships moving back up into cruiser fire, which is not going to go well for their health. More gunships moving around the top north, so he may just be trying to organize for some kind of airplay, but I honestly don't think it's going to work out at this stage. Just too much has been lost. He's now taking UEF shelling directly to the base. I think this is one of those games where the eco probably went on just a little too long. Just a little. There goes a T3 power generator taking most of the fabricators and some factories with it. If you're building mass fabricators while you're losing Navy, I think you might be ecoing too hard. Just saying.
Maybe. Maybe. I think ZLO had more shield boats than BlInChIk. This could be a factor. Not
It definitely
sure
could,
though.
but there was a tipping point where ZLO definitely had way more units in the water. Just far more mass invested into Navy. Whereas all of BlInChIk's mass was in those T3 mass extractors.
I kind of missed out on how much the submarines actually managed to kill. Like, they are a lot stronger
Not
in
that
equilibrium.
much. Not that much.
Okay.
There was some T1 torpedo defense spammed up in the home base that killed off most of them, and Coopers took care of the rest. So
Oh, okay. ZLO actually brought them all the way to the bay.
he took them into the shore, yes.
Yeah, okay.
So BlInChIk is using his eco right now to get up another T3 mass extractor, and he's actually building clink hammers. Not smart. UEF battleships actually outrange clink hammers. So you're really not doing yourself any favors. There we go. BlInChIk has conceded.
But this was a lot of fun to watch.
It was a good
I
Navy
love the
fight. It's
Janus
always
action and all the drops.
fun.